Hi guys, I hope you're doing well, I hope you've had a good week, and welcome to another book review. Today I am reviewing Doughnut Economics, 7 Ways to Think Like a 21st Century Economist, written by the brilliant Kate Raworth. The phrase Doughnut Economics I have come across a while ago, and to be honest, it's quite surprising to me how long it actually took to purchase this book and to read it, because I've been hearing bits and pieces about it for a while, and then I think I actually gave a shot at reading it in Waterstones once, but I never finished it. It didn't quite grip me back then, and as its kind of public awareness grew, I finally thought, you know, Max, it's probably time that you actually pick it up and have a shot. And what can I say? Doughnut Economics has absolutely blown me away. It doesn't matter if you are doing economics or law or philosophy or music or anthropology. I think that if you have any ideas about how you think 21st century should go about, then you probably need to read this book before solidifying any of those ideas. You know that I'm a big fan of open-mindedness, and I change my opinions all the time as the new facts come into life, or rather they come into my head. So that I think that Doughnut Economics really discusses some of the most important issues when it comes to economic, societal, cultural modeling and setting the vector for the development in 21st century. So the book is really a comparison between the economic thinking, economic structure, economic ideas of 20th century, and the fact that probably carrying them through to the 21st might not be the best idea that you can have. So the book has kind of 7 chapters, and they focus on different areas of the economy. You know, they focus, some of them focus on inequality, one of them focuses on, for example, GDP and the fact that gross domestic product is not necessarily the best measure of how well the economy is doing. It's a very clear comparison between 20th century thinking and 21st century thinking. And here you can also see the 7 chapters that I was talking about. Kate Raworth is looking at different things that we kind of agreed upon from an economic standpoint in 20th century, such as GDP being the measure of growth, the market being self-contained, the fact that there is a rational economic demand that exists, the fact that market equilibrium exists, and she kind of changes that scene and says that in order to move forward, we need to have a more sustainable, more thought-through models that will work and will lead to basically human fulfillment and human happiness in the 21st century. Right, so the concept of a donut is, I think, what I probably should cover in the review or the advice on whether you should read Doughnut Economics or not. So the donut represents the way the economy is kind of architected and designed. Right, so ideally, the human society and any economy should be within the donut. The outer edge of the donut is surrounded by mostly external pressures on the planet as a whole, such as, you know, climate change, ozone layer, the biodiversity, mass and things of that nature, space, natural disasters, etc., etc. And the inside is the cultural pressures, such as inequality, gender gap, racism, discrimination, and things of that nature.
It's time to get into the donut, the sweet spot for humanity. But that's no easy task. Today, billions of people still fall short of their daily needs, from food, housing and energy to healthcare and education. And yet collectively, we've already overshot our pressure on some of Earth's most critical life support systems, driving climate change and the breakdown of biodiversity. What we do to this Earth in the next 50 years will shape the next 10,000. So let's replace that last century goal of endless growth with the goal of thriving in balance.
So the idea is that the optimal point of existence is within the donut, and the shape of it is supposed to be circular, and that was the intention of Kate by sketching this out. And we shouldn't be going out of the donut, so we shouldn't be overusing the planet's resources, and we should be making sure that the sort of the cultural, the societal bit is also not infringed upon, so that this is where we should exist. The idea that the economy is circular is not new by any stretch of imagination, but then, and you have to actually read the book to understand, but what Kate is saying is that it needs to be circular in a different way with different goals and actors having different roles. So, you know, the role of the state, the role of the market, the role of the society, the role of the household should be shifting in the 21st century. The main ideas by which the book is driven are, first, we have been growing for a while, and the further growth at the same pace, in the same way, will be to the detriment of our planet, and eventually will end us all, so it's not a good idea to continue. B, even though we have been growing at quite a spectacular rate and we have achieved a lot in 20th century, in the 21st century there has to be a shift, because even though GDP per capita has been growing for a while, the median salaries, the happiness index, and a bunch of other measures that individualistically are supposed to be more important than some GDP per capita construct that doesn't even transcend into our real life kind of experiences. So those things such as, you know, happiness, fulfillment, being eco-friendly, being sustainable, having a good, healthy society are supposed to take the main stage in the 21st century. I think the book does a great job at actually, you know, using data and using the wit and satire and the amazing humor to communicate some of those points, and I think that it is definitely worth reading whether you are a liberal that straight on agrees with Kate, like, yeah, you know, let's not care about the growth, who cares about the money, there's so much inequality. That's a great stance, and I think reading the book would give you some of the arguments, some of the data, some of the clarity to actually solidify those points in your mind and communicate it to whoever you want to communicate it to, or whenever you want to deliver kind of that message of we need to make sure that the growth or absence of growth, but the development of the economy is more sustainable than it is now. It will also be useful to my conservative friends that actually think that this is all kind of horse crap. You know, it's difficult. Things like climate change, inequality, happiness, these are the concepts that can be interpreted in different ways. And you can easily quantify the growth, the GDP, the economy output, and those kind of factors usually conservatives argue are much easier to measure, to track, and eventually they will lead to kind of resolution of a lot of the societal problems. So I think for the conservative friends of mine, this would be a great book to read, to just have kind of a more rounded view of the discussion, really. And I think that there's quite a few books about inequality, about sustainable development, about the fact that growth shouldn't be the end kind of point and the goal that humanity is striving for. So you can read either one of the books that have recently come out, but I think that Doughnut Economics is probably one of the best ones just because of the sheer volume of stuff that it actually covers and the fact that it does address all of the arguments from the conservative side in each chapter, talking about the different ways economy should change in 21st century. I was recently told that I don't bring up enough negative points about the stuff I read and listen, or the people I interview, so I'm gonna try to improve on that. Negative. First, sometimes chapters are a bit overwhelming, you know, things such as inequality, such as the assumptions of economics that are basically false and how to challenge them, the fact that the economic growth shouldn't be the goal, but the sustainable growth should be. you probably could write 7 books, and it can be a series of 7 books instead of one book with 7 chapters. So sometimes I feel that because of the constraints of one book, Kate is kind of limited with the volume of how much she can actually say about a subject. So it often happens that when she moves towards these solutions, be talking about cryptocurrency or redistribution of income in a more fair way to kind of solve inequality, I think she just doesn't have enough pages to actually elaborate on that. I'm sure she can, but this book doesn't quite provide the depth of the solutions. So I would say that the Set in the Scene is probably one of the best books in the market, but in terms of equipping you with the tools or pointing you to the right direction to start solving the problem, there might be better books out there, but I don't think it's even criticism, because, if you decide to put it into one book, inevitably you have to do some trade-offs in what you can and cannot put in. And just another kind of criticism of mine is that it didn't really place enough. So, we were talking about the donut, right? The inside is culture, outside is the climate, the planet, the external natural pressures on what we're doing with our economy. So I think that there wasn't enough mention to our interplanetary aspirations that have lately been quite well covered in the media, with people like Elon Musk, Bezos and Richard Branson getting serious about space travel and exploring.
And I hope we are out there on Mars and maybe beyond Mars, the moons of Jupiter. I hope we're traveling frequently throughout the solar system, perhaps preparing for missions to nearby star systems. I think all of this is possible within 50 years.
I think that from the longevity of species standpoint, we now live on a perishable planet, and we have done a horrible job so far in terms of preserving this ecosystem that basically gives us so many opportunities and we so desperately depend upon. However, extra super long term, we should be thinking about some sort of interplanetary existence, because no matter how we reorganize our economy, if we're talking millions of years, then the sun will stop shining. There can be an asteroid that will hit our planets. The planet can just, something can go wrong. A lot of things can go wrong.
Hey, will you stop?
I would be happy with even, one little section of a chapter saying that, this is on the table, we're thinking about it. We're also thinking about the virtual space and how perhaps we can partially move into the virtual reality, but how is that going to work with the environment and things of that nature. It would be good if Kate gave a kind of a quick shout out or a quick consideration to some of those exponential growth, super long-term theories. But actually she did mention people like McAfee and Brynjolfsson talking about the technological revolution and artificial intelligence. So from the negatives, there really isn't much to say. I also had a look at Kate's website. I of course invited her to my podcast, but we'll see how that will work out. This is probably set to be one of the classics of kind of popular economics. Definitely it can be one of the bricks that will help us build a wall of sustainable economy and smart economic planning, something that we don't really indulge ourselves in lately.
We're gonna build the wall. We have no choice. We have no choice. Wall. Build that wall. Build that wall. Build that wall.
So definitely highly recommended. Perhaps some of the chapters you can skim through, but that's the case with all the books. If you don't want to read, that's fine. You can. There is a bunch of podcasts. You can just Google Kate Raworth, and she has a lot of stuff online. So maybe if you just want to grasp a concept, perhaps this video will help you, or some of the stuff that she has online can perhaps be enough for you and for the goals that you are after. On my side, I will now go on to record a few more videos that are focusing specifically on the different chapters of the book, such as, for example, the GDP question, the inequality question, the rational economic man versus behavioral economics debate, just because I want to dig into some of these points, not necessarily as part of a book review, but more like kind of discussion questions. So anyways, you can check that out. That's up to you. I don't really care. I mean, I do care, but not like that. Anyways, love you guys. I hope you're having a good week, and I will catch you next week. Ciao, bye.